We are reduced to the level of children whose minds will be furnished with the ideas that society thinks are good, rather than having the right to make up our minds for ourselves. You know, the great slavery abolitionist Frederick Douglass made this point. He said, censorship is a double crime. It's firstly the crime of stopping someone from saying what they want to say, which is terrible, but it's also the crime of stopping other people from hearing everything and deciding for themselves what is true and what is false, what is right and what is wrong. And it's that impact of censorship that we, I think, underestimate the importance of, because what censorship does, it doesn't just stop you from, you know, when you had that those millennial twats at Spotify freaking out over Joe Rogan and his podcast and vaccination, etc. It doesn't only threaten to restrict someone like you and other individuals from saying what you want to say. It also deprives ordinary people, the public, the masses, of the right to hear everything and to use their mental and moral muscles. You know, John Milton made this point in England in the 1640s. He said, the moral muscles are like the physical muscles. They benefit from exercise. And just as if you let your physical muscles go to waste, you'll become a bit of a wreck. Similarly, if you let your moral muscles go to waste, you'll become a moral wreck as well, because you will become an ape-like creature who has to be told what to think, who has to be told how to behave. It's far preferable, I think, to allow people to exercise their moral muscles, to use them on a daily basis. You know, we go to the gym for our physical muscles. We should be able to exercise our moral muscles in public life by hearing all sorts of opinions and by deciding for ourselves, using our own critical faculties, what we think is right and what we think is wrong.
Unquestionably, and well said. I think it's also a function of what's going on today with the access to the internet and social media and the addiction that almost everyone has to both of those things that participates in them. You're getting so much information, and you're getting it in a way that human beings have never experienced before, and it's easily manipulated. And I think that's the argument for what they're doing on TikTok in America versus what they're doing on TikTok in China. But I think it's also being manipulated because that's what we like. We gravitate towards those things that they show us, and it upsets us that they know what we like.
Yeah.
You know, this is part of it. But in China, they have a TikTok that kids aren't allowed on after 10 p.m., It accentuates athletic accomplishments, martial arts, science projects, and it's designed to foster this sense of self-worth and performance. And that's how you want to, if you want to build a stronger society, that's what you would encourage. And if you want to diminish the society that is run by your enemies, you would show them the problem with freedom. Here, you're going to have men with beards and long fingernails teaching your kids about gender, and you're going to be you're a plumber, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What are they doing to my kid over there?
Yeah.
And that's real too, and we're all like battling this in real time in a way that's never happened before in the entire human race, as far as we know.
I think the issue with social media, which is a real issue, and Jonathan Haidt was talking about this with you and in his new book, there is a problem, I think, with kids hanging around on social media all day long, and especially something like TikTok. And if you look at, I limit my social media use as much as possible. I'm only on Instagram, which is nicer than all the other platforms because it's just recipes and pictures of people's holidays. It's a bit more of a bearable experience. So I don't use Twitter. I certainly don't use TikTok. I'm way too old for that. But lots of young people do. And I think what's interesting about it is that I fear, one worry I have, you may disagree with me on this, but I fear that an anti-technology view is creeping in amongst those of us who might be broadly described as reasonable or anti-woke or on the side of rationality. I do fear that an anti-technology view is creeping in because the problem as I see it with the internet and with social media is not so much the existence of these things, but the fact that they've molded themselves around a pre-existing culture. So social media in a different era could have been one of the most wonderful things imaginable. It could have been a forum for spreading ideas or for proving to the world what a big man you are, what a strong woman you are, and saying, look, I'm taking control of my life. It could have had a different impact entirely. But what's happened is that social media has emerged in an era in which young people in particular are encouraged to be hyper fragile, to mess around with their gender in a way that they shouldn't, to conceive of themselves as mentally ill when they're not mentally ill. So you have on TikTok now kids self-diagnosing themselves. There will literally be videos on TikTok saying, do you have these 4 different symptoms? If you do, you have ADHD, you have clinical depression, you're bipolar. And it's 4 things that everyone has. Do you occasionally feel unhappy? Do you occasionally struggle to meet deadlines? And so what I think the problem with social media is not the technology itself, not the ability of people to communicate as freely as social media allows, not even necessarily the fact that kids are on there all day long, although that is a problem.